Greetings and welcome to another round of Master Phil in Your Corner. This is episode number 119. We're here to discuss, has corporate America been bribed into silence? There's a new ESG or the Wokeness standard, the ESG index, and we're going to delve into that. And we have a great guest here. He's what we call a repeat offender. That's because he's been on before. We have one of the owners of ZWinning Mindset, none other than Gene Zanetti. Gene, welcome back to the podcast. Great to see you as always.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Always a joy.
Yeah. The funny thing is that, we see what's going on and I've called some attention to this, obviously in posts and whatnot on social media. But I think that we really have to speak to it. And, very few people are willing to speak to this. And I think that many people are almost bribed into silence with, what's going on. People speak differently in a corporate hallway than they do in the boardroom. They talk differently when they're out to dinner with their friends, and yet they won't take action. I mean, I know people who make a lot of money and think just like us. They believe in God, they believe in country, they believe in meritocracy, and yet they're afraid to speak out because they don't want to jeopardize their jobs or the big deals that they have. Can you elaborate on this? Have you seen this as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, to a certain extent, we have to kind of curb we can't say everything that comes to our head because we are dealing with, especially in America, the fact that we're in a very diverse area. Like, okay, at the base level, I don't think anyone wants to see someone completely alienated, ostracized, or made to feel bad. So at the very floor, we're not trying to make people feel bad or hey, it's just you alone and no one likes you. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
We also have a very, so our society is based, for better and worse, it's based on toleration, like a lot on toleration, which if viewed through the right lens is a good thing in that we shouldn't force people to see things from our point of view. In that regard, toleration is a good thing. It might not, optimally, we would all adhere to the truth, yes. Right? So like there's different dynamics. Like optimally, we know there is one truth. There can only be one truth. And morals and what is in the world, like you look at faith, like what is the ontological ultimate reality of things? There has to be a truth. And by definition, if that's true, everything else is false. Right. And that moral code would be the same as like there's laws of physics, there's laws of mathematics. We don't choose the laws of math, we don't choose the laws of physics, we don't choose the moral code. So the truth is what is, and our job is to conform to what is. Now, that could sound judgmental to modern ears because, oh, you're saying that then my truth is not true. It's like that's not how it works. We're speaking about an objective matter, which doesn't care. Objectivity doesn't care about feelings or viewpoints. It's not putting you down. It's just the truth just is. And all of us have to conform to that, which means some people will ultimately be right and some people will ultimately be wrong. Now, that's not a denigration on the people who are wrong. We assume goodwill and that, a fellow traveler, everyone's just trying their best to find out what is the truth. But we also know that there are a lot of people who aren't even pursuing the truth. And it just comes down to, hey, whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you feel good, as long as you don't bother me, I'm going to do whatever I want. I get where people are trying to come from, but that's very dangerous because if we're not ultimately all going to agree on the truth, it's basically just one opinion against the next. And then when it comes to legislation, when you're trying to make laws, whether it be in a business, whether it be in a government, there has to be some kind of criteria. And if it's just majority rule, mob rule, then, well, what happens when the mob swings 51% this way? Everything changes. Well, then the mob swings this way, and then everything changes. So it's just not a very solid ground to be standing on from a metaphysical perspective. So that's the other thing. And like we said, now when we're talking about dealing with our jobs, because we're also living in a very sensitive period of time where people look at even a statement that there is a truth, there is a certain thing that we have to conform to, and people get insulted and they feel like, well, you're putting me down. We're not putting you down. We're not putting you down. We're just saying this is what reality is, and we all have to conform to it. I'm not at liberty to deviate from this either. We're all in the same boat. It's not my reality versus your reality. It's you and I sitting on the same table, sitting on the same side of the table, looking out at what is and saying we both need to conform to this. And the difficult thing is when people have a faulty version, a faulty understanding of reality, and they need to be corrected, people are very touchy nowadays where don't offend me.
Right.
Don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I guess to some extent, the way a lot of people communicate the truth, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not blaming or criticizing anyone. Sometimes we do tend to be a little bit harsh. Not all the time. Just because we're telling the truth doesn't automatically mean we're being harsh and ruthless.
Right.
But sometimes we're humans. We communicate poorly sometimes, and we let our emotions get the best of us, and we might communicate it in not the most charitable way. So it tends to happen in a business or any situation is, well, we unfortunately gravitate to the least common denominator. We don't talk about truth. And then unfortunately, we have a lot of suboptimal outcomes because we never discuss the truth. Right. But people at its best in a situation of a team or a business, we don't want to offend anyone. And we don't want to have to go into all these arguments and debates about ultimate reality. How many people even have the desire to talk about these kind of things philosophically, make all the distinctions of definitions? It's hard. It's a laborious process. So it's just either easier to say, you know what, let's just agree on this and not talk about it for the sake of everyone's peace of mind. And yes, that does make a lot of businesses and teams easier to function. But at the same time, we're not rooted on truth, so it's going to ultimately lead to problems, if not in the short run, in the long run, because truth at the end of the day trumps everything.
Yep. Here's the thing.
Long-winded answer.
No, it's okay, but you brought up a couple of interesting points. The thing is that nowadays people are so easily insulted and have such thin skin. Things that were considered common day speaking 20 years ago, now you can get a fine for it, basically. And if you look at this, and if you look at the two things, I'll bring up two, and they're very closely related in my mind anyway, is how people get insulted so easily, whether you speak to, faith or God, right? And when you address people being overweight. Okay. And what happens, what I see people doing is that they make justifications and reasons, like even if you look at like this Ozempic drug, right? That drug it's a lifetime drug and it's not curing the problem. Okay. And the thing is, like, if you allude to someone or tell them that they're overweight or whatever, they immediately get insulted and think they take it as a personal affront. They do the same thing with religion. They do the same thing with faith. And look, I have not always been, on the straight and narrow with my faith. And, I came back for a variety of reasons. And sometimes we fall off the path, and none of us are perfect, not even close to perfect, right? But, that still doesn't mean that I'm going to, deviate from the path I'm on now, because I know that I'm going in the correct direction. And you know what? And I know you saw my post on this in regard to all of those NCAA champions. How many of them spoke to their faith? I mean, look, they're a lot more righteous now at this age than I was at their age. And if you think about this, though, think about like what they've done and what they're doing and the task they have at hand. And you know what? Here's something that really hit me hard. I was really thinking about it. Was the fact that if you're that committed, you have that much faith, you get rid of all these unnecessary distractions. Think about that. That enables you to focus on your task at hand and stay on track.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's right. It's right. I mean, a lot of athletes, a lot of wrestlers talking about their faith. That was great. I loved a whole bunch of them. I mean, Figueroa, his mother was holding the rosary beads. He blessed himself right after on the camera, right in front of the camera on ESPN. I thought that was great, but it's showing that. See, I guess here's another way of looking at it. Maybe not changing gears, but kind of a little bit of a tangent here. When I was studying psychology, I was in my doctoral program. They were talking about warning signs for suicide. And I bring that up because that's like the lowest of the low where someone's at a point where like, I can't live anymore. So it's like, okay, well, that would be the worst case scenario for a person, right? Yes. So they have an acronym for warning signs for suicide, and it's is path warm. So I is suicidal ideation, S is substance abuse, P is purposelessness, A is anger, T is thoughtlessness. H is hopelessness. Warm with feelings of withdrawal. The other A is anxiety. R is recklessness. And then the final M is mood change, a mood change. Okay. So is path warm? That's how you remember that. Now, here's the thing that struck me.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, you know, as a grad student. Those don't all seem to be on even playing field. In other words, some of those warning signs seem to be causes, and other of those warning signs seem to be effects.
Thanks.
As in other words, anger, anxiety, mood change, those seem to be effects. But what seems to be causes? Feeling purposelessness, hopelessness. Those were two things. So now it seems like that is what's symptomatic. That those are the not the symptoms. Those aren't the symptoms. Those are the causes of those other symptoms. So when I look at purpose and hope,
yeah,
if those are two things, if a lack of purpose and a lack of hope are strong indicators of this terrible situation of suicide, what gives us purpose and hope? Faith. That faith answers those ultimate questions. So sadly, in a godless society, an atheistic, it's not godless. It can't be even metaphysically, but for God to be pushed to the side, that's going to then have those effects, purposelessness and hope. And then that could lead to the lowest of the lows. So we do need purpose and we need hope. Now here's where it gets trickier, because having any purpose and any hope is better than having no purpose and no hope.
Yep.
Right. No. But that's still not the whole answer, because if I just create my own purpose, if I just create my own, what gives me hope? Like, hey, I just want to be a national champ, and I believe I could do it, and I have hope. Okay, that might sustain me. So when my friends are doing things they shouldn't be doing, I'm okay. But then eventually life starts kicking in. You may not reach your goals. There's deaths in the family. Like life just comes at you. No way. And now it's like, and then your wrestling career just ends. And now it's like, now the purpose and the hope, that was everything, that's gone. So, you know, at the end of the day, in order for that purpose and that hope to be rock solid, it would have to be based on something that doesn't change. And that's where having a firm grasp of what the truth is really comes in. Then it can't be shaken by anything that happens in life.
So this is my question, because when I see what's going on, I said, well, what is the end game? What is the purpose? Okay, so when we look at companies like BlackRock, when we look at Vanguard, in 2005 they had about $2 trillion. They're on target right now in 2025 to have $20 trillion. So basically own everything, and they're pushing a faithless, godless kind of Marxist agenda, and based on this green initiatives, based on different social norms that they're forcing down the throats of people that work in these corporations, thus buying their silence. And it does affect the bottom line if people speak out. If companies aren't towing the line that they're putting forth, their ratings drop.
Right.
Investors, investments drop. Their worth as a company drops. What is their end game, and what do we do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, because now we're dealing with, okay, well, it's all this stuff, like the people who are sitting at the top, who are, the people who are sitting at the top, who have their own agenda, to put it in the most mild way, right? But I mean, it ultimately goes back to this battle between good and evil.
Yep.
The Garden of Eden. We're back to the woman and her seed versus the serpent and his seed, and so it's there's Christ said the enemies, the world, the flesh, and the devil.
Yeah.
Said in that's the enemies, the world, all the ideologies outside of the truth, right? The flesh are natural temptations and temptations from other people, and the devil, right? The demonic, the spiritual warfare. I mean, ultimately at the root of it, I think this is how we could help have a charitable interpretation for other people, giving people the benefit of the doubt that it is ultimately a battle against principalities and powers and the demonic, right? So that's like, we have to be aware of that. So like, even these people who have bad intentions, they're being controlled by the demonic. I'm not necessarily in a, I mean, it could be in a possession kind of way, but in other ways too. Just there's other forms of demonic influence outside of just, your head spinning around like the exorcist. Like the normal mode is temptation.
Right.
So just, I mean, I guess what was the question there? I mean, that's ultimately what's going on. We're battling against evil. Yeah. People at the top have their interests. I mean, I think what we can do about it, at least at a natural level, I mean, obviously prayer, fasting, fulfilling what Our Lady of Fatima said to do, that's going to ultimately be getting at the heart of it. At a natural level, what we can do is forming coalitions, having these kind of conversations, because it is hard to say these things at work without losing your job, because all it takes is one person to complain, and it's like, you know what? You could be replaced. There's a lot of people looking for work. You're gone. Someone else comes in.
And just to drive that point home a little bit more, is that they're trying to force people into these corporate entities and under corporate control. Hey, look, if you look what happened with COVID, right? Let's just take New Jersey, for example. 40% of those small businesses closed in New Jersey to never reopen. Okay. Yeah. Now, what are small business people? Small business people tend to be a little more faith-based, independent thinkers, not controlled, right? And they want those voices silenced. That's why, a lot of people are fleeing this state right now and going to other states where they're a little more free. I mean, so you look at all the different stores that were open during the pandemic. They were all large corporations, all fast food. The small mom and pops, they were shut down. The gyms were shut down. The liquor stores were open.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. That's a means to be able to control people, right?
Right.
And that's we know, like with, as far as substance and pornography, like sex selling, sex is also a very powerful form of control, because what happens is now we're turned in on ourselves and thinking about our desire, and then it's like the rest of the world kind of becomes much more mundane, which is why like now, like especially in college, it's scary, and even younger, it's like you don't have to tell kids like, hey, you might be addicted to porn. Like, they know they're addicted. They know they're hooked. And a lot of these people have been trying to break these kind of habits, and it's tough. So it's like, it is definitely a form of control with this. But back to your point about, it's tough because you have big business and you have big government, and they're actually in bed together.
Oh,
so like
100%.
So you look at it, well, because who's going to make the biggest contributions to the political figures, but the people who have a lot of money in big business. Yeah. So, and this goes back, I mean, even back in the beginning of the 20th century, G.K. Chesterton said this, that, they're two heads of the same Freemasonic monster, really. It's like, you got big business, the right, I guess this would be the right on your side, right? And then the big government, the left. And it's like, oh, they're opposing each other. They're not actually opposing as much as it seems. And that you have to step outside of that and say, okay, listen, these are two heads of the same beast. There's an animal with two heads, and that's all feeding the same thing. Yeah. And that's why I always say there's always three sides to every coin: front, back, and then there's the side, the edge. And when you're on the edge, that's, you could see what's going on both sides there.
Yep. That's
right. We probably talked about that before.
Yes. And that's where the intelligence resides. You bring up something here, and I will prove your point. Because if you look at our government, how come people get elected to Congress, Senate, whatever, they go and they're making $200,000 a year max, right? How come they come in without a lot of money and they leave with millions? How is that? You're going to tell me they're not in bed with the corporations?
It's bad. It's bad. And then the downside, like you said, the downside is now, when and a lot of people losing their jobs then, right? So it's like, now, okay, the vaccine, everyone's got to get the vaccine. Now, I mean, if you just step back and just say what's right, people should have the freedom to be able to do when it comes to injecting a foreign substance into your body. You should be able to weigh the facts for yourself and then make that decision. Just purely from a rational, like, you shouldn't be forced to have to put something into your body that could do something to alter that alters it. And especially when it's not like it's conclusive And there's no safe drug.
No,
There's risk benefit ratio, and being able to weigh that for yourself. I mean, this is like fundamental human rights. So the fact that you have to do it, okay, well now, right? And who gets, it's the government, you'll be out, and big business, you'll be out if you don't get that. And that's exactly what we saw. And it's difficult because if you're in between, you feel like, oh, this isn't for me, they get rid of you.
right. Well, here's the thing, what's going on right now is the rights of the individual are being smashed.
Yeah.
The bigger the government, the bigger the corporations, the less the individual is recognized and the less rights that they have.
I mean, and even just like looking at the taxes and stuff like that, right? Where it's like the small business, being a small business owner, right? Relatively speaking, it's like it's nuts. Like it's almost like it's set up for you not to succeed. I mean, and it's not a matter of making excuses. And people could do it. It's just very, very hard, and it's a big time, and it's a big time struggle. And you would think like what our country was founded on, like some aspects, the good aspects of what our country is founded on is these are the people we should be encouraging. Right. Whereas you look at even like healthcare and benefits, it's like not really that good for someone who's independent, like myself, small business. Okay, big government, be good if you're in a big government job. Big business, you're going to be really good. Well, who gets crushed? The mom and pop guys, the in between there. And then if you don't conform to what they want, now guess what? You might be out of a job. And now you're in that rat race where it's difficult. So again, it's not a matter of like complaining. It's just it is what it is. And when you see that big government, big business being together, and now if you don't conform to their interpretation of reality, which isn't necessarily based on any truth, it's coming down to their interpretation. Now it's gonna be hard. We have to embrace that it is going to be hard. Like, as we're in Holy Week right now, Spy Wednesday today, Holy Thursday tomorrow, Good Friday the next day. Christ said, they persecuted me, they will persecute you. We weren't promised an easy life. We weren't promised, oh, you're going to be a Christian, everything's going to be happy and easy.
You hit the nail on the head. This is the problem. People want it easy. And the thing is, this is what, anything worth it's not easy. Like freedom isn't free. Okay, we've become spoiled in this country, and the things that people don't want to be uncomfortable, and this is the problem. And you know what? Do you think that I feel comfortable when I get up in front of the Board of Ed and I speak my mind and I point out what they're doing? Do you think I feel comfortable? Right. I don't want to do that, but I have to. No. And do you think I feel comfortable speaking to some of these things because I don't want to be taken the wrong way because honestly, dude, I love everyone and I want the best for everyone. And I don't want to, I'm not against any group, but whatever your proclivity is, I can care less. I want the best for everyone, but but the truth is a truth, and people need to face that. But how do we inspire people to stand up? And the thing is, the other thing that's important is when somebody stands up, you have to stand behind them. Like I know plenty of guys who bring out their sword in the boardroom and they look behind them and no one's there. Everyone's sword is still in the sheath. They're not ready to fight with them. This is something that we have to inspire people to do, that not only have the guts to speak up, but the guts to back up somebody who's speaking up.
Right. And it takes true courage. I mean, it's a heroic act. There's a real heroism there. And in some ways, and we see this with groups in the past, a lot of situations where if you're in the minority view, which we are, like as religious, faith-filled people who are going or trying to be, and believing there is an objective truth, when you're in a minority, you have to do things better than other people. And I mean, I do things better in the sense of you have to speak more carefully.
Yes.
You have to eat a lot more. You got to eat it a lot more. And when people are giving you garbage, there's silence that's going to have to be. But think about all the virtue that actually becomes a blessing in a lot of ways. Like it hurts because we're like, man, I have to be so careful with every little thing that I say, and I have to purify my intentions. And I have to have a poker face. I can't do anything that's going to overtly offend people. Yes. Well, so like it's bad that they're forcing that like you have to be in there, but it is a blessing in a certain way because you can grow in a virtue. Whereas if we're in the majority, we have to be as careful. We can be a little bit more reckless. We can be a little bit more, hey, you know what? And you have to deal with it. and that's not great either. So I think it comes in with embracing the cross and the good things that come with it, that if we are in the minority, if we are being persecuted in a way, it does help us to live. It forces us to live better if we want to make any kind of change. If we just want to come in like a wrecking ball and just, a bull in a china shop, start, speaking our mind, saying whatever we want, however we want, we're going to get knocked out real easily. We're going to be alienated. We lose our jobs. And at the same time, we didn't really have an opportunity to practice virtue. So it forces us to practice some virtue, which ultimately is a good thing. So that's another way to see it as a positive.
Yeah, that's, I have to agree with you, things that it makes us better.
Yeah.
Better. And you know what? By being better, people will say, hey, maybe they have something there. This was the whole reason behind my post about those young men, those athletes, that won over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was my whole reason for that. I want to say, hey, take a step back. Just take a step back and look at it. What is the truth? What is the truth that they see? What is it? So maybe we should adopt it. Maybe we should be looking at that. Maybe we should consider it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. It forces us to do a little bit, like, again, when things are easy, this is the downside. We don't like, no one likes suffering. No one wants things to be hard. But when things are hard and when there is suffering, that's the time where we do the most reflection. It forces us to be a little bit better and to be a little bit more contemplative. Otherwise, it's just basically amusing ourselves to death. Like, hey, I'm good. I don't need to think too much about how I'm saying things. I could speak however I want. That's not a good thing either. So, but I mean, that doesn't mean that it isn't good. Like, obviously, we don't want people to be soft, and we do want people to toughen up and have thicker skin. That's leading to a ton of problems. Right. But on our end, we just, we want to do the best we can.
Yeah. Hey, Gene, do you have any closing thoughts for the audience today?
I mean, it's ultimately all symptomatic of us turning away from God. It is the ultimate reality. It's that, I don't look at that as a judgmental thing to say. I think there's very good evidence to believe in God. I believe there's very good evidence for Christianity. And I think if you just ask the hard questions and you think about it, you will come to those answers. And it's just, I think the key these days is, of course, love, like a true charity, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt as best as we can, really trying to be in it for the good of everyone, and being intellectually honest. I feel like there's a big block in a lot of people not wanting to be intellectually honest because, well, what might happen if I uncover the truth? Maybe I'll have to stop doing something that I like to do. And the reality is, that is true. You are going to have to change certain things that you're doing and the way you believe certain things. And it might lead to a little bit less pleasure, a little bit less enjoyment, but ultimately knowing that there's a bigger picture, and there's something. Truth trumps. There will eventually, and it goes back even to the ancient Greeks, Aristotle. There is a greater delight in contemplating the truth and living in accordance with truth than even bodily pleasures, which are fleeting. They come and they go, and it actually leads us to addiction because you get a good feeling. That's great. You're good for a little while. And then you realize, hey, I got to go back to the well because I need more. And then, okay, I'm good for a while, but I got to go back to the well. I need more. And it's actually a life of addiction and slavery rather than freedom. The freedom is actually living in accordance with the truth, which brings a certain delight in and of itself once you're living that way for a while. But it's not easy. So walking with people, being as patient as we can, because it's hard for me to be patient. I don't always say things well. And encouraging people to be intellectually honest and doing things on our end that allow them to be intellectually honest. But the root of the big solution is going to be supernatural. It's going to be prayer. It's going to be fasting, like our Lord said. It's not going to be something natural, but we do the things natural on our end also, and allow God to do His work.
Those are some great words. I hope that people start following and really pay attention. But again, thanks for being on, and strength
and honor. I love it.